Now, the latest consumer price index report shows Nigeria's inflation rate increased by 15.75% year-on-year in December of 2020, the highest rate recorded in 3 years. The report released by the National Bureau of Statistics puts the latest figures at 0.86 percentage points higher than the rate of 14.89 recorded in November of 2020. On a month-to-month basis, the index increased by 1.61% in December of 2020. This is a 0.01 points higher than the rate recorded in November of 2020, which is 1.06. Now, the closely watched index rose sharply by 19.56% in December compared to the 18.3% recorded in the previous month. On a month-to-month basis, the food sub-index increased by 2.05% in December of 2020, up by 0.01 percent points from 2.04% recorded in November of 2020. Now, the rise in the food index was caused by increases recorded in prices of bread, cereals, potatoes, yam and other tubers, meats, fruits, vegetables, fish, oils and fats. In the months of December 2020, Bauchi State recorded the highest inflation rate at 19.85%, closely followed by Kogi State with an inflation rate of 18.4%. Others include Edo at 18.1%, Zamfara at 17.9%, Sokoto at 17.6%, and in terms of food inflation, Edo State also recorded the highest rise in inflation rate with 24.1%, followed by Kogi State with 23.16%, Sokoto with 22.2%, while Kwara and Zamfara State recorded food inflations of 22.1% and 21.7% respectively. Now, joining us to discuss this is a financial analyst and journalist, Felix Oloyede, I beg your pardon. Now, Felix, good to have you here on the morning show. Please, can you help us make sense of those numbers and how does it affect the average man on the streets?
Good morning, and thank you for having me here. The simple truth is it means that Nigerians are becoming poorer by the day. It shows that we need to spend more to get what we used to get. Your disposable income is reducing. So these are the implications of these numbers. And if you go by the trend of things, it may even go higher in January because the figure we are looking at is that of December. And you remember some other things have happened in this January that may make the figure go up. So Nigerians are poorer than they were in November. They spent more money in December. So this is what Nigerians are battling with. And if you look at the inflation rate and you just oppose it with other African countries, we have the 7th highest inflation rate in Africa, just better than Zimbabwe, Congo, Angola, and some other countries. So I think we have a lot to do to improve the well-being of Nigerians. So this is the implication of the figures that were just released this week.
If we take a closer look at the figures themselves, we can see that the highest increases in terms of prices, those were definitely logged in areas like passenger transport, medical services, hospital services, shoes, and other household goods. When you look at those things, I mean, how many of them can you categorize as essential services, things that people would have to spend regardless? Mm-hmm. And how many of them do you think are things that people can navigate and survive without?
I didn't really get your question.
When we're talking about this hike in inflation, this general hike in prices, if we take a closer look at those figures to find out what areas of what somebody would usually spend their money on has increased, the things that have been highlighted as the areas where you see the highest increases are things like passenger transport, passenger transport by air, so travel, medical services, hospital services, shoes, and other footwear. So if we look at those categories, which ones of those would you say are essential, things that people would have to continue spending on, and which ones do you think people can survive without or find local alternatives for? Because ultimately, in a year like 2020, we learned that a lot of times things aren't in our own control. If you used to travel by air, when you have things like lockdowns keeping you down, it's obviously keeping you away from utilizing your money in that way. So what I want to ask you is, in your professional opinion, when you look at the hikes of prices across a basket of goods, across a basket of services, how do you think the consumer can navigate away from trying to survive without spending as much?
Well, if you look at one thing you should notice that December, you usually have this rise in prices. People need to travel from one end of the country to the other to celebrate with their loved ones. And you can't stop them from doing that. You can't stop people from falling sick. You can only advise them to find a way of staying healthy by keeping fit, eating. So it's difficult to really say one should stop the other just to reduce what you spend. It depends on each person. Because if I have things to do around the country, I will always need to travel. If I have more children, I will need to feed them. So it is difficult to really put your hand on where one will need to adjust this. So what you should look is, what is the cost of this rising price? That is what we need to really look at. And if we address them, then you will see that prices will begin to moderate. And if one of the major reasons we have this hike, we have bad roads, you have insecurity. So these are some of the things that we need to address to bring down prices. Not telling people to really, yes, people need to cut, but to what extent do you cut? That is another question that is begging for answer. So we just need to do things that will make prices to moderate, to stabilize. Because if you look at, this is the highest we've recorded in 3 years. The current figures we have in inflation is the highest we have recorded in 3 years. It means that consistently prices is going up. So you need to check this trend to see that you have stable price. And surprisingly, the government is targeting 11 point something inflation rate for this year. What are they putting in place to see that we'll achieve this? These are some of the things we really need to look at going forward.
All right, Felix, you just mentioned the government there. That's where I was about to go to, because they are saying that with food inflation now, being particular on food, the food inflation rising to about 19.56%. They said contributing factors include bad road, multiple taxations, extortions, majorly responsible for this hike in the number of in the price of foods across Nigeria. The mentioned states like Bauchi, Kogi State, Edo State, to mention but a few that are actually badly affected. What can the government do in the immediate to ensure that at least the price of food commodities do not keep going up month after month?
Well, one of the things the government needs to do is to address the challenge of insecurity in the country. A lot of people cannot go to their farm in the north. Just yesterday, a colleague was telling me that his whole farm were just finished by herders and their animals. So if people cannot go to their farm to produce food, definitely you will have a high price of food. So the government needs to do something. If they need to recalibrate the whole architecture of the security system apparatus that we have in Nigeria, the government just needs to do that. Nothing will thrive in where you have insecurity. You cannot make any progress. So if you want to bring down price, address the issue of insecurity. And I don't think you really need much. You need to import people to do that. Over the years, we have been budgeting huge amount of money for defense and security. So let's see the impact of this money. Because you, all over the country, you have one issue or the other to address on the issue of insecurity. In Edo is cultists that have taken over the places. In the northwest, you have bandits. In northeast, you have the issue of Boko Haram. And over the west here, you have the issue of kidnappers and armed robbers. So the government needs to really, if you need to bring fresh blood to lead our military apparatus and the security system, then we need to do that. You cannot keep doing the same thing and you want the same result. That is on that side. Then the other issue is the issue of our roads. The roads are bad. So it costs more to bring food from the farm to the cities. So we need to do things about this road. And it's not just the federal government, because most times we focus on the federal government. States should begin to fix their roads. If the whole 36 states are able to fix their road, then I don't think we will be where we are today. So we must address the issue of fixing our roads. Then another thing we should do is to encourage people to produce more. If you need to finance the agricultural sector more than we are doing, then you will see that productivity will increase. A lot of farmers cannot access finance, and is a major challenge. Like the inflation rate now will make interest rates to go up. That means people will need to pay more to get finance. So this is some of the things that we need to do in the shortest possible time to address the issue of rising prices.
Food and farming and the restrictions getting people to produce as normal. If we look at that, for example, food inflation that is, we know that Edo State, for example, recorded the highest rise in the inflation rate if we look at it from the worst hit states. In addition to Edo State, we know that Kogi, Sokoto, Kwara and Zamfara also have recorded very high numbers in terms of food inflation. Is that a byproduct? Is that a result of what you were just saying? Poor roads, bad access to markets?
It is part of it. And you know this thing is a chain. They are related in one way or the other. If there is problem in the north, it will be challenging to bring food down to the south. And if there is problem in the south, nobody wants to risk his life to bring food down here. So it's part of the challenge. When people don't feel safe, they don't want to go there. They don't want to die because they want to get other people fed. So it's in a way, it's a chain that affects everybody that is in the system. So there is no way you want to isolate maybe one state or the other. Yes, they may have the highest because of one reason or the other, but it affects everybody. If there is fighting in Lagos, then people in Edo will suffer because they have things they produce and bring to Lagos. If there is crisis in Zamfara, the food that is produced in Zamfara will be expensive in Edo and other states. So that is how it works. And that is why every government, whatever level you find yourself, you must do to ensure.
Felix, you need to hold on to that particular thought. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll pick up the discussion right now. Don't go anywhere. You're still watching The Money Show here on The Rise. You're still watching The Money Show here on The Rise News. We still have with us financial analyst and journalist Felix Oloyede. Felix, we're still talking about the inflation with the figures just released, all right, just last week. And looking at that, you were talking about what the governors need to do in terms of fixing of roads to ensure that there is proper mobility from the farm to the cities. And maybe that might just drive the prices down. Pick it up from there before I ask the next question.
I didn't really get that again.
No, I was just reiterating your last statement. Yeah. But okay, in the meantime, moving on, let's actually press further. There are talks that give us your view in terms of exchange rates, because they say the restriction of dollars in terms of access for food and fertilizer imports has also driven traders to the parallel market. And that is why we're seeing also a sharp rise in the prices of food commodities here in Nigeria. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, the exchange rate is like a life wire of the economy because people need to import things into the country, and unfortunately, we import most of what we eat. If we produce locally most of what we eat, then we will not worry much about the rise in exchange rate. But because we are import dependent, once the naira begin to dance, then you begin to see prices of everything going up. And you know this thing is a chain. If I sell pepper and I pay much to buy rice, then I will increase the prices of my pepper to be able to have money to buy the rice I eat. So the exchange rate is a major determinant of prices in Nigeria. And I've just given the reason is that because we don't produce most of what we eat. And mind you, you know it was just in December that the border was reopened, and that also impacted on prices because like frozen food, a lot of them we couldn't bring them in because they used to bring them through the a lot of them through the land border, and that also impacted on the prices of food. And you know, in Nigeria, during the December period, especially Christmas and New Year celebration, we eat a lot of frozen foods like the poultry, turkey, and chicken. So that is the reason why food price went up. So, and you know, to bring them into Nigeria, you need to pay in foreign currency. So if the naira is weak, definitely you need to pay more to be able to buy these goods. So that is why you will always have a rise in the prices of food and other imported things once the naira weakens.
When you talk about the reopening of borders, though, wouldn't you believe that that would be a good thing for the price of goods in the market if for however long, 16 months, these borders, Nigeria's land borders, were closed to other countries? It meant that, you know, it was the supply of certain goods, consumer goods, was definitely restricted. In effect, that brings the price up with that scarcity. So with the border reopening, wouldn't, I guess, basic economics suggest that that would be a good thing for the economy? It would bring prices down. Is that, you know, and then, you know, in your answer just now, you said that in December, people did have to spend more, I'm assuming in nominal terms, because of inflation. But I just wanted to ask you, when you think that the effect of the borders reopening will start to bring prices down, if at all?
Yeah, well, it will bring prices of some commodity down, especially those that will import through that corridor. But it is a two-sided coin. As the prices of some goods will come down, it will affect some other sectors, because when you import things, you are affecting the local industries who produce that same thing. Yes, you may get them at a cheaper rate, but it will be affecting somebody's job. So it's a two-way thing. So what we should encourage is that we ramp up local production, because there's nothing stopping us from having sufficient poultry production in Nigeria. We are blessed with good climate. We have good soil that can grow most of the things we'll bring into the country. So border closure will definitely cause the prices of some goods to go down, but it will have an adverse effect on some of our industry, especially like the textile industry. They were one of the sectors that benefited tremendously from the border closure. So now they will need to look up to government to be able to monitor the border properly, so that people will not be able to smuggle these materials into the country. But going to your question again, yes, it will affect the prices of some goods positively, but some people may be losing their job because of that.
All right, Felix, you just mentioned the ramp up local production, and I got very, very interested. My eyes just lit up. But how do we do that? Because all indices would always point towards the government, like you mentioned, that if the government creates an enabling environment, certainly, like you mentioned, in the textile industry, then it has the ripple effect in other sectors, basically. Talk to us, what can the individuals do themselves? Because this is a collective effort to ensure that we actually ramp up local production. Or are the citizens just beginning to feel lazy to push the boundaries to ensure that we do some things locally?
Well, one of the things that people would do is, one, look at the best way you can produce what you are producing. Look, what are the best means you can cut prices so that you will be competitive? Because that is one of the reasons why people prefer imported goods. Because the cost of goods here and the cost of production of goods here are very, very high. And why are they high? The cost of power, the cost of taxes, the cost of funds. So these are some of the things that we need to look at the individual level. Engage the best technology that will reduce your prices. Some of the things you can cut that will help your prices to go down, then cut it. Because some of the people who run some of this business, they run on a very, very high cost. And some of them is what they cost themselves. You want to use a big car because you are the CEO. If you need to draw down the cost you spend on some of these things, you need to do it so that you will be competitive. If you are competitive, if you generate more funds, then you can live the way you want to live. So individually, but bulk of the responsibility still falls on the desk of the government, because it's not an individual that will address insecurity. It's not an individual that will tackle the problem of electricity. It's not an individual that will address the challenge of multiple taxes that we have in the country. It is government that will create an enabling environment. Let me give you an instance. The issue of a credit register was reintroduced, or we adjusted it about 2 or 3 years ago. But I cannot say somebody who has benefited that with your generator you can go and borrow money and banks will give you. I don't think that is happening. So we need to look at this thing again and see how people can have access to cheap funds that will make their businesses thrive and bring prices down. These are some of the things we need to do so that local production will increase. There are a lot of things we need to do that will, for instance, let me give you another instance. Okay, our schools, they've been on vacation or they've been on strike for close to a year now. What if they were supposed to develop technology that will help local production? They won't be able to do it in the past 1 year. That means they become uncompetitive. So it's a barrage of issues that it will take some time to be able to address them.
You know, earlier on in your discussion, you mentioned the government target of bringing inflation down to around 11% by the end of the year. I know that you're a financial analyst and not a psychic, but I'd like to ask you two things. Firstly, do you think that Nigeria, when we come off the back of a year like 2020, is on track to bring its inflation rate down to 11% by the end of the year? And further, how long do you think it will be before Nigeria sees a single-digit inflation rate? Very quickly.
Okay, we will not achieve it because, one, we are in inflation, we are in a recession, and you need to pump a lot of money into circulation to help us get out of this problem. problem. The first thing the government is targeting is to see that we get out of recession. And you can't be fighting inflation and addressing the issue of the economy down at the same time. So they would have fixed that figure. They know that we will not meet it. And the other question is on having a single digit. Since Emefiele came in, his target is to bring inflation down to single digit. And I think he will not achieve that before he leaves office. It is a lot of issues are in place that will make it difficult. Yes, going forward we may achieve it, but it will still take some time. It will take some pretty time, because the issue of power is, if I tell you what individual companies they spend on power, open your station, you know the amount you spend on power to run this station. I know most times you run on a generator, not even government electricity. So if you compare your station and that of other, you will know that getting a single is a mile away.
Felix, he ended perfectly there.
Yeah.
We have come to the end of our time with you.
Yeah.
That is Felix Oloyede. Thank you very much, financial analyst. Thank you for your time there.